Good afternoon, guys. I'm so sorry that I haven't been able to get this video out to you sooner. The reason for this video is to show you some stuff that you can expect for your Saturday workday. A lot of these things you can already get a head start on. A lot of it is data and inputting of student information and scores that you will have access to. But I wanted to show you a little bit about what you can expect for Saturday's workday. And I wanted to share this video with you because I felt that it would be best for you to use this video so that you can refer to and talk about with your team or by yourself if you're working on individual data by yourself. And you can start working on it slowly. The whole point of it is for you to be able to use this video at your free time so that you can start working on things for Saturday. The whole idea about Saturday is I don't want the intent for you to start on it on Saturday. I think a lot of these things you can do already. So that's why I wanted to share this video with you so I can talk to you and then also address any questions that you have for me after you see it so that it doesn't take into so much time in an individual PLC for grade levels and also for questions that maybe don't apply to you. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. We're going to start first of all with your workday checklist. Your workday on Saturday is going to be depending on what time you come in. And again, this checklist is going to be given to everyone. These things that I'm sharing with you will be emailed to you. And so basically, everything here, I'm going to print them out for you, number one, so that you can have them as you come in the morning or noon time, whenever your scheduled time is to come in. But it's just kind of like a checkoff list on things that you should have gotten done or been working on. Like I had mentioned before, a lot of these things you may already have completed, so that's kudos to you. But the big ticket items are going to be about data, student data that maybe you still haven't received because some of you are still testing to this point or doing any makeup testing. So on Saturday, as you know, is the end of the third reporting period. So all of your grades should be done. Your individual grades need to be put into, obviously, Skyward. Make sure that you're double checking that you're not missing any grades. And be sure to identify any students that are failing 2 or more classes. That is a big thing, especially because we're already the end of first semester. So I do need to be notified of any students that are failing 2 or more core classes, actually. Also, you will need to make sure that you're making contact with your parents because your parents obviously are a very important part of the educational system. And so we want to make sure that your parents are notified and there's no surprises when they get the report cards. Also, Dr. Vega has a long checklist of things that need to get done. Some of these things regarding elevation, your perm records, all that kind of good stuff is also going to be needed for you to complete. Your 4th 6-week syllabus in the Google Drive. And the last thing here on the clean and organize room, that's if you've already completed everything and you still, have some time to spare, you can take that opportunity to clean and organize your classroom in preparation for your return. Ms. Lima, our counselor, does have some stuff for those of you who have 504 RTI students. You may be lacking documentation. You take that opportunity to finish that off. First grade dyslexia screeners and the diagnostic tests for those tests that we did receive back from our students. We have them, and she has them ready for you to retrieve from her, and those need to be placed in the individual student data folders, and that's just so we have some concrete evidence or authentic work from our kiddos. Not a huge amount of things that need to get done, especially because a lot of these things, guys, you can already start working on. Make sure that you work together collaboratively work smart, not hard, regarding things that you know that you can help each other out as a grade level. And I know that you do, so I'm not concerned about that. The first thing that we're going to talk about is going to be specific to, it says third through fifth, but actually it's second through fifth, because as we all know, we've talked about, second grade is going to be a very important component to preparing for STAR, especially in the very near future. So we have, so this particular checkoff list, or what I call is, our student academic plan, is academic progress plan, is what each of you in second through fifth will have to fill out for each child. Now, here the plan just basically has just basic information, and you can choose to either fill it out on the computer already, or you can just write it out as you are going through your perm folders. So it's basic information about your child, the homeroom teacher, grade level, student ID, date of birth, age, entry date. And on certain cells in the Excel file that I'm going to be sharing with you, or spreadsheet, you'll see that there's certain cells that have little purple notations. Those are basically notes, and it's just information that I want to share with you, so that we can just know about data, know about accountability, and why that is so important to know. And for, in particular, the entry date, I noted on there that anybody that enrolls after October 30th is not considered a part of our snapshot. So we should already know that those students, those particular students, are not, we will not be accountable for as far as STAR is concerned in a theoretical STAR year. Also, they're not considered non-continuously enrolled if they're within ECISD. And those are just kind of lingo that you'll be learning, that you'll hear me talk about as we get closer and closer to STAR. So you'll see there's little check marks here. This is like as if you were filling out the template. You can indicate by a check mark, or if you'd like I had mentioned, you can just fill it out on your own using, a pencil or a pen. We also need to know their learning style, because I think that's important when we're looking at academic progress, and we're looking at coming up with a plan of action for each child. We're asking for remote synchronous, remote asynchronous, are they on campus, those types of things. Also, are they on campus and it's face-to-face? And that might be because as a teacher in second through fifth, you're on campus and you're actually working with your student, or that particular student face-to-face. I think that's important to note also. Over here, when we talk about student groups, we're talking about, is a child Hispanic? Are they white, Asian, African American? What is their specific ethnicity? Eco-dis means economically disadvantaged, and it would be notated in their perm record, or if you don't know, I can give you that information. So definitely anything that you're not aware of because you weren't able to find the information, or for whatever reason you're just not certain, by all means make sure that you ask me. EL, LEP, so we know that EL is English learner, and its old verbiage is LEP. EL monitored, we do have some EL monitored students, and whether they're special education resource or special education unit, or just special education because they have a hearing disability or maybe a visual impairment, that would also be notated within either the perm record or on Eduphoria. There's special labels too, whether they're GT, 504, RTI, You also have Spanish students, which are HILD students. And then over here, it's asking for years in U.S. schools. That is part of TELPUS. How many years have they been in U.S. schools? And that's important to know. And obviously, that would only be notated if they are an EL student. Any student that is not considered EL, you wouldn't get that information. And then what is their test language? Are they English or are they Spanish? So this is basically just basic demographic information on your child, and a lot of this information is already provided to you. It's on Skyward or on Eduphoria, and you could find that easily. Over here, as we get lower into the actual spreadsheet, here we have the state assessments. This information, like star 1819, that would only be applicable to our current fifth graders, because our current fifth graders are the last group of students that actually took a STAR test in, and they were third graders when they took the STAR test. Here it has how many test items that were on the test. This is just already embedded so that it has the formula. So let's say that your child received 30 out of 44 test items. It would automatically do the percentage for you, which means that they passed. It is at approaches. And then to the side, you can note if they did get any kind of designated supports on that particular test. Right here, the same thing applies for reading, so on and so forth. The only reason that I haven't included any other years is because, like I had mentioned, math and reading was the last time there was a STAR test, and it applies to our current fifth graders only. So if you are in second, third, or fourth grade, obviously this is going to be empty. I have it here just for explanation purposes. This is the Math Star for 2021, and what we're going to try to do together based on how they're doing on your weekly assessments, your reporting period tests, and just basically from your professional opinion on what you think the students are going to score. It's a forecast. What do you think that these children are capable of for the 2021 Math Star for your grade level? And you will use that data from your district benchmark after we have our benchmarks in February. Our February benchmarks are February 23rd and 24th. So you really don't have to worry about this so far right now because you don't have that data. But I just wanted to explain that FC means it's a forecast. What do we predict that these children are going to do? But we'll do that together once we have some benchmark scores from the district. Over here is basic TELPUS information that we need to know about our children. And like I said, these are just, hypotheticals on scores that could possibly be scored by your child. If they have an 1819 TELPUS test score, then you'll need to input what they scored on the reading, speaking, listening, writing, and then obviously the composite score. The same thing for the 1920 TELPUS. Over here is the same thing that we're talking about with forecasting. Forecasting is what do we predict this child is going to score on the current year TELPUS in each of these areas. And this is a good activity because, as you know, we're going to be looking at TELPUS soon. I know that we have to do holistic ratings on our children. And I know it's scary because we don't have these kids in front of us. So it's something that we can talk about as far as what do we think that these children would score, on their TELPUS exams. So for right now, the forecasting, obviously, you're not going to do that because we don't have some data on that yet. But if your children do have an 1819 or 1920 TELPUS score, then that's what you would input this information. Now, on this information, I've also included it. If you notice at the very, very bottom down here of the spreadsheet, there's a lot of different information. So for the TELPUS scores, I added that on the spreadsheet with what I have on the reports. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't have what particular grade level the child is in, but it does have everybody in alphabetical order that has a TELPUS score from the 2019 TELPUS, and that's just there for you. In addition, your children have this information input on elevation, and I'm certain that Dr. Vega has given you access to elevation. If you're still not sure about that information, by all means, don't hesitate to ask. But for any child that has a score, specifically from the 2019 TELPUS, it is available and it is right there for you. Going back to the actual student plan, on the next area is probably where you're going to spend the most time, because like I mentioned, on these assessments, some of you may have complete blanks because our children haven't taken a previous assessment, or they're not in 5th grade, or they haven't taken a TELPUS test yet. So don't worry too much about that if it doesn't apply to your child. Here, the reporting period assessments, you know, what we know is our 6 weeks exams, those are probably going to apply, well, not probably, they will apply to all of our students at minimum from 2nd through 5th grade. And here is just broken down into the different reporting categories. We have one for first reporting category, second reporting category. Then we have our pre-diagnostic that we implemented on campus. And then the third reporting category, which is what you're finishing up now this week. Here, you're just going to insert when the dates were. And then those are the number of test items that were on your particular assessment. I know that for the different grade levels, specifically 2nd through 5th grade, you have a different number of test items that are going to be tested. These are just, you know, numbers so that we can have a score. So let's say in particular for 3rd grade, you had 28 items. You'd simply insert 28, and let's pretend your child scored 14 out of the 28. It already includes the passing percentage. This information I don't have with a formula that is already there, so I'm going to count on you to tell me what the child would have scored if for your particular test. But I have those numbers in there just so that it can allow, you know, a little bit of ease for you to figure out. Over here on the designated supports, those would apply for certain students that are in that either are receiving EL, SPED, 504, or RTI special designation supports. And Ms. Lima has that. And I know for those of you who have 504 or special education students, you've sat in ARDS. You've had meetings regarding your specific children. And so for the majority of your kids that are receiving designated supports, you should already know. If you're not sure, if you're not certain, then again, those are things that we can have discussions about regarding your kids. So on here, just so that we're clear, again, these are just scores. We don't have any of these below yet because it hasn't happened, but the formula is already in there for the time that we start inputting our data. From this data that you're inserting for your child, that's where a lot of this planning is going to take place, because we're going to identify for your child what are the lowest performing TEKs for that child. So if the child had three lowest performing, then you insert 3. If there were only 2, you insert 2. The very minimum you should have is 1 focus TEK that child needs. But for planning purposes, and just so that we can make sure that we get, through the most comprehensive assessment of our child, I would recommend at least 2 TEKs that you would focus on. And those are specific to this particular area. So from the top, you did your math, and then at the bottom, you have reading. So it applies. It's the same thing that you're going to do, is just insert. You're going to insert the date the student took the test, how many test items, how many items they scored correctly, and it calculates the percentage for you. Also insert if there was any designated supports for that particular exam. As we know, math and reading do not receive the same types of designated supports. And so your child may be oral accommodations for reading and not necessarily needed for math. Or they may need both. It just depends on the child. And that's why it's so important for us to look at each child individually as far as how they're doing academic-wise. And that's what the purpose of this particular spreadsheet is for, is to identify the individual weaknesses in the learning for that child. And then the same thing applies, is let's identify what were the specific TEKs in this reading test that we're going to focus on. And you'll see a trend. You'll see it's either the same TEK, or you'll see that maybe there's a couple of TEKs that this child is really weak in. Our hopes is that there's not too many, but in this virtual learning, I guess, system right now that we're in, it makes it just that much more difficult when we don't have the children in front of us. But this is the best that we can do with the information that we have. So that's what we're going to do with it. So over here, like I said, the student plan is for 2nd through 5th grade, since you have those exams that I outlined, those reporting period exams. And some of you, 5th grade has a STAR score, and 2nd through 5th may have a TELPUS score. Over here, these other tabs, I'm going to go through them, just really quickly because it's for your information. But when we're talking about assessments and we're talking about STAR in specific, we're looking at what the performance level of that child was. And so you may say, well, Ms. Garza, I have no idea what you're talking about. When you're talking about performance level, how do you want me to figure that out in reporting category, in a reporting period? So over here, we have 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. So for 2nd grade, I would use as close as possible to 3rd grade. Report raw scale conversion and scale score. And so I know that a lot of you have seen this before. The last time we have gotten anything updated from the state was in 2019. So this is what we're going to use, because this is what the district uses as far as figuring out where a particular child is at. So for example, when we're talking about, let's say, 3rd grade reading, and we want to know, well, what is the number that my child needs to score in order to meet the approaches level? So you see the approaches level is highlighted there in that purple, and the minimum raw score is 18 out of 34. So we know that if a child scores at least 18, which is 18 test questions correct, out of a total of 34, they'll meet the minimum threshold of approaches. And so then you have the same thing for meets and the same thing for masters. So the threshold for approaches is anywhere from 18 to 25 test items scored correctly out of 34. Meets is 26 through 28 items out of 34. And masters is 29 out of 34, 29 through 34 out of 34 correct. The same thing applies to math. So this is what you would use to figure out if your child scored at a certain percentage as far as passing for approaches, meets, and masters. You can also convert it into a percentage, but for the sake of ease, I've provided you this for the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, in case you didn't know or you're not certain, or obviously these numbers we haven't memorized off the top of our heads, but if you have, then kudos to you. You always have it as a reference point. Again, that would be only when you're talking about what would be the student performance level. The reporting category scores in Eduphoria pretty much have already been aligned to your grade level, so they should already have that for you. But if you don't know or you're not certain why it was calculated that way, I can tell you right now it was because it is as close to the STAR calculation as possible, and that's just to prepare our kids for the rigor that it's going to take to pass STAR. So that's what these 3 things are for, these 3 different worksheets. And RSC obviously is raw score conversion. That's what that stands for. Here is all of your entry and withdraw students. So let's pretend you put away a certain perm record and you didn't access when their entry or, if applicable, withdraw date was. We have it here for you. It's on this particular bottom tab. It's entry and withdraw students, and they're in order per grade level in alpha, but they are sorted by your withdraws, and then it has your students that are still current or active. If your child happened to have withdrawn and you need to clear that up on that perm record, then we have the withdraw date for you to insert. And that goes all the way, for all the grade levels. So this will be available for our pre-K through 5th. It's going to be on the same workbook. So again, if they're in red, it's obvious that they are withdrawn. For whatever reason, if you find a discrepancy of any kind, please make sure that you let us know. Because we're dealing with so many different students, it's possible that maybe there's a discrepancy of some sort, but for the most part, I believe that this is accurate. Like I mentioned earlier, here's the TELPUS scores that we have so far from your students from the 2019 TELPUS. So, and they're in alphabetical order. And then over here is just a template for you to use, a blank slate. Like I mentioned, you see how it says, how it shows 0 here? 0 is because it's ready for you to input your relative scores. So again, if I only had 25 items on my test and my child had a 12 correct, it does a percentage for you. So that's just for your ease. The only thing that you'll need to figure out is that 48% is that an approaches, a meets, or a masters. And again, it should be there available for you on Eduphoria, but if it's not, it's on the raw scale raw score conversion tables. So hopefully that's a little bit clear. I know that Zavala is a very data-oriented campus, so I'm confident that you all are aware of what I'm talking about. But by all means, don't hesitate to ask. I want to make sure that what's important to me is that you understand what we're talking about, especially when we're talking about data. That is so important. Over here is just a blank, another blank copy, so that that you can use for filling out the information that I'm asking for. So for 2nd through 5th grade, like I had said earlier, this is what you're going to be inserting for each of your homeroom students. Here is just kind of like, it just gives you an example. I tried my best to show you what an example would look like. And then over here, the template is what you would use for your particular individual students. I believe that's all on the student academic progress plan, and that applies from 2nd through 5th grade. For the primary grade levels, it's slightly different, but not that different. The only difference is for K and 1st grade students or teachers, so to speak, we are going to do it a little bit differently and not do individual, but actually have the entire classroom. And I just have like I said, this is an example. This is an example from other grade levels, but for K through 1st grade, you're going to input the teacher's name, and over here, you're going to input your students' names, just what you would have on your own specific data roster. I highly advise that you just copy and paste. If you're not sure how to do that, or if you have your own data roster, please don't hesitate to share that with me. The important things to know about your children is the EL status, if they're just economically disadvantaged, what kind of instruction are they receiving, what is their language of instruction, obviously 504, RTI, all of that. Here is for your STAR Early Literacy, and the last test, if your child took a test, is September 2020. We're aware that there's certain children that don't have a STAR Early Lit test score yet. However, we're hoping to remedy that in our upcoming middle of the year tests. So that is something that I know that Ms. Gutierrez is working on scheduling specifically with each of the grade levels that needs to do the MOY testing. Over here for K and 1st, you're going to input your reading and your math reporting scores, and then your that was for 2nd reporting period, and then you have for your 3rd reporting period, and you're just going to insert the scores for each of your individual students. Over here is diagnostic skill set scores that you can get from your reports. So if your child is in need of, we need to address the area of their alphabetic, awareness, their letters and word recognition, phonemic awareness, you're just going to indicate that. And then any comments here is going to be if you have in particular maybe a GT child that needs enrichment activities. Enriching means that we're advancing the level of rigor during that time period, which is 10 to 10:30. We're going to do some differentiated instruction for that particular child, something a little bit more rigorous, and or if they need intervention, and that's where you're going to go back and provide intervention on the areas for those particular children. Over here is just kind of like an example of what it would look like theoretically for this is a first grade classroom, and this is a kinder. You see K, and you see different notations on there for the comments, and basically it's what you've assessed of your child, and this is like a snapshot of your classroom. This is only for K and first grade. For pre-K, I'm going to be having a different monitoring form, since pre-K is even more challenging because there's so many different areas that we need to address for monitoring our students and making sure that they know how to read. So again, you know, those are just templates, and they're very, I believe, simple to fill out. It's a lot of just information that you have at your fingertips that we want you to know about your children. Once you have completed the data for your individual students or your classroom, then you're going to meet to discuss what is going to be the plan for an enrichment lesson. So we've talked about lesson plans. We know what our district scope and sequence has. We know what we're expected to teach. However, in preparation for the district benchmark, February 23rd and 24th, we need to come up with a plan with closing those academic gaps that we've already taught. So in working together as a grade level, I have a template for you just to insert. As a grade level, you're going to say, second grade is going to be focusing on this TEK, and this TEK for the next 4 weeks in preparation for the benchmarks. These are the groups of kids that we're going to be rotating, or if you're going to be doing it self-contained, that I am leaving up to the grade level to decide. You know, you guys are the professionals in the grade level, and so you'll be able to say, we're going to focus on this and this skill. You can choose to do it, you know, team teaching in a rotation, pull out, you know, however you plan to work with those kids. The only thing that the template is going to have on is the groups of kids and what resources and TEK that you're going to be using during that time. Our goal at the end of that planning is that we have a set lesson for the next 4 weeks during enrichment to work with the kids on those particular week TEKs in preparation for the upcoming ECISD benchmarks. So again, a lot of this information I know that you already have. You have access to. You have it on Eduphoria, you have it on Skyward, and if not, it was provided to you on the data plan that I have, and it's in a sheet tab at the very bottom. Some tidbits for you to know here is that if you don't have your tab maximized, you may, well, here it has it there, but you may not see all of the tabs at the bottom. So I highly advise you always maximize your tab so that you can see everything that is available at the bottom of the template. So like I said, hopefully I've addressed what I'm wanting to do, you know, or I'm wanting you to do for that day. The folders that you're going to use for your students are going to be provided to you in advance, along with this template. So for some of us that want to write it out first, that is not a problem. If you want to handwrite it and fill it out, and then maybe go back and input it later, that is not a problem to me. I think that you can use this form either in paper or electronic, however you want to use it. That is not, I'm not going to dictate that to you. However, I will need a copy of each student's plan and what you have identified for them, before you leave for the day. So however you do that, whether it's you give me paper copies of them or whether you email me your own students' data, that is fine with me too. So again, I urge you to work smart and not hard. Remember, many of you share these kids. You can split up the kids as far as I'll take these kids, you take those kids, and you can input the information because many of you may have more kids than you service more kids than what is on your homeroom. So you don't want to have to do redundant information that maybe your colleague already input. If they're working on a certain group of kids, you can work on the other and just share like the big ticket stuff, which is basic information, basic demographic information, maybe some assessment information that was already gathered. So that's all I have regarding the items that I'm going to ask you to take care of for 2nd through 5th, and then obviously K and 1st. Pre-K is going to have a different progress plan. However, the other items are still needed for you to input, to review, and to submit to those particular personnel, specifically with any plans that need finalizing, signatures, all that kind of good stuff. The role or the expectation of your Saturday workday is to really dig into the data as far as what do your kids need for this next chapter, which is the next semester. What is it that we need to prepare these kids for upcoming benchmark tests and or STAR tests or TELPUS testing? Or reading, writing. What is it that we need to do in order to focus preparing these kids? So these individual academic sheets, everything that I just went through with you is going to be emailed to you. I'm going to upload copies also for you to be available on the Google Drive. And in addition, this video. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that I hope it answers several of your questions and puts it at ease. Like I said, I highly recommend you start working on this stuff. A lot of it you don't necessarily need to do on Saturday. You can get ahead of the game and start working on these things, work smart, work with each other. And by all means, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm here to help you. Again, I did this video because it's, number one, it's easier. I'm modeling what we can do in our classrooms, but again, it's so that I can be sure that I go through it with you and you at your own time can go through it and ask me any specific questions that are related to you and not necessarily an entire campus. So that I think will save you time and hopefully help you in this endeavor. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Take advantage of the time. Take advantage of Friday, any free time you have then, so that Saturday it's just checking off your checklist and getting your day taken care of. If there's anything that you need in the meantime, email me, text me. I'm here to help you. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you guys. Bye.